In a peaceful village, a wise old gardener named Mr. Harold decided to teach the village children a valuable lesson about forgiveness. He gathered the children in the village square one sunny afternoon and handed each of them a small pot. He instructed them to plant a seed inside and care for it daily. These seeds, Mr. Harold explained, represent the grudges and ill feelings we sometimes hold against others. I want you to care for these plants as if they were your feelings of anger and resentment. The children eagerly planted their seeds and took their pots home. For the first few days, they diligently watered the plants and kept them in the sunlight. However, as the days passed, they noticed that the plants, instead of growing beautifully, began to wither and rot. The once lively and hopeful seedlings became a source of unpleasantness and frustration. A week later, Mr. Harold gathered the children again. He asked them about their experience with the plants. Many children complained about the smell of the rotting plants, the difficulty in carrying the pots around, and the disappointment of seeing their efforts wasted. Mr. Harold smiled gently and said, "What you experienced with these plants is much like what happens when we hold on to anger and resentment in our hearts. These negative feelings consume us, just as the rock consumed your plants. They make our lives unpleasant and weigh us down." He then asked the children to empty their pots and plant new seeds, this time representing forgiveness and kindness. "Care for these new plants with love and compassion," he instructed, "and see how different the experience is." The children followed his advice, and soon, their new plants began to grow into beautiful flowers and lush greenery. They felt lighter, happier, and more at peace as they tended to their flourishing plants. Mr. Harold gathered them once more to discuss their new experience. The children were joyful, sharing how much they loved watching their plants grow, and how much easier it was to care for them. "This," Mr. Harold said, "is the difference between holding on to hatred and embracing forgiveness. When you let go of your grudges, your heart becomes a place where beautiful things can grow. Forgiveness brings peace and happiness, just as your new plants have brought you joy." The children understood the lesson well. They promised to carry this wisdom in their hearts, knowing that forgiving others and letting go of negative feelings would lead to a much more fulfilling and peaceful life. Tom Baker and Emily Smith, after the incident on the soccer field, found themselves in a peculiar situation. Both had carried their seeds of anger and resentment for so long that they couldn't fully shake off the tension even after the game's conclusion. They avoided each other for the next few days, each nursing their wounds and grappling with the lessons Mr. Harold had imparted. Meanwhile, Mr. Harold continued his teachings with the children, emphasizing the importance of forgiveness and letting go of grudges. He organized activities that encouraged cooperation and empathy, hoping to build bridges between families and reinforce the lessons of peace and understanding. Emily's reflections. Emily found herself deeply affected by Mr. Harold's words. She had always been told that the Bakers were untrustworthy and that their family feud was rooted in some long-forgotten disagreement. But after the incident with Tom, she began to question whether the animosity was worth perpetuating. One afternoon, while tending to her new plants in the garden, Emily pondered over her feelings. She remembered how Tom had defended his viewpoint with such passion, just as she had defended hers. She realized that beneath their rivalry lay a desire to be heard and understood. Emily decided to seek out Sarah, the mediator among the children, for advice. Sarah was known for her calm demeanor and ability to see both sides of a conflict. They sat together under the shade of a cherry blossom tree, its delicate petals falling around them like whispers of peace. "I don't know what to do, Sarah," Emily admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've always been told to stay away from the Bakers, but Tom, he's not what I expected. He's just like us, trying to make sense of things." Sarah listened attentively, her eyes reflecting understanding. "Emily, sometimes we inherit conflicts that aren't ours to bear. Maybe it's time to break free from the cycle and forge a new path. Emily nodded thoughtfully. But how do I start? The feud has been going on for so long. Sarah smiled gently. Start with forgiveness. It's not about forgetting what happened, but letting go of the anger and resentment. Maybe you and Tom can find common ground, like we did during the rematch. Encouraged by Sarah's words, Emily decided to take a bold step. She wrote a letter to Tom, expressing her thoughts and feelings about the recent incident and her desire to move forward with understanding rather than hostility. Tom's reflections. Meanwhile, Tom was grappling with his own thoughts about the feud and his encounter with Emily. He had grown up hearing stories about the Smiths' supposed betrayal of the Bakers, stories that fueled his distrust and dislike for Emily and her family. Yet, during the soccer game and afterwards, Tom couldn't shake off the image of Emily standing her ground, just as fiercely determined as he was. He realized that their rivalry had blinded him to seeing her as a fellow human being with her own struggles and aspirations. One evening, while helping his father in the family bakery, Tom found himself lost in thought. The warm aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air, comforting him as he contemplated the letter from Emily that had arrived earlier that day. His father, noticing Tom's distracted demeanor, asked gently, "Something on your mind, son?" Tom hesitated for a moment, then decided to share his thoughts. "Dad, do you think our feud with the Smiths is worth all this bitterness? Emily, she's not what I expected. She's just like us, trying to figure things out." His father paused, wiping flour from his hands. "Tom, I've carried the weight of this feud for too long. Maybe it's time for us to consider forgiveness. Not just for their sake, but for ours too. Life's too short to hold on to grudges." Tom nodded slowly, absorbing his father's wisdom. "How do I even begin? It feels like we're so deeply rooted in this conflict." His father smiled knowingly. "Start with an open heart, son. Right back to Emily. See where it takes you." Inspired by his father's words, Tom sat down that evening and penned a heartfelt response to Emily's letter. He expressed his own reflections on the feud, acknowledged their shared humanity, and extended an olive branch of peace and reconciliation. The meeting. Several days later, Emily and Tom arranged to meet in the village square, under the watchful gaze of Mr. Harold's favorite oak tree. The air was crisp with the promise of spring, and the villagers watched with hopeful anticipation as the two approached each other tentatively. "Emily," Tom began, his voice steady, yet tinged with nervousness, "I've been thinking a lot about what happened between us. I realize now that we're not so different after all." Emily nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I've been thinking the same thing, Tom. Maybe it's time for us to find a way to move forward, to let go of the past." They stood facing each other, the weight of their family's history hanging between them like a fragile thread. But in that moment, under the oak tree's comforting shade, they felt a sense of peace and possibility. Mr. Harold, watching from a distance, smiled to himself. The seeds of forgiveness he had planted in the hearts of the children were beginning to bloom, their petals unfolding in a display of understanding and reconciliation. The journey of forgiveness. Bridges of understanding. Emily and Tom's meeting under the oak tree marked the beginning of a transformative journey for both families. As news of their reconciliation spread through the village, it sparked conversations and reflections among the villagers themselves. Sarah, the wise mediator among the children, found herself approached by other young members of the Baker and Smith families who were intrigued by Tom and Emily's decision to reconcile. They sought her guidance on how to navigate their own feelings of resentment and distrust towards each other. Sarah, with her gentle demeanor and insight, organized a series of meetings in the village square. She encouraged open dialogue and listening between the children from both families. They shared their perspectives, fears, and hopes for a future where the feud between their families could be resolved. It's not just about Tom and Emily, Sarah explained during one of the meetings. It's about all of us finding a way to understand each other's stories and experiences. We can build bridges of understanding if we're willing to listen and forgive. The children, inspired by Sarah's words and empowered by the examples set by Tom and Emily, began to see each other in a new light. They realized that beneath the surface of their differences lay a shared desire for peace and harmony in their village. Community healing. As the children worked towards reconciliation, their efforts didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the village. Families who had long been affected by the Baker-Smith feud started to reconsider their own attitudes and actions towards each other. Mr. Harold, observing the positive changes in the village, decided to organize a community gathering under the oak tree. It was an opportunity for everyone to come together, share their stories, and express their hopes for a future free from old grudges and misunderstandings. The gathering attracted villagers of all ages, each bringing their own experiences and perspectives. They sat in a circle around the oak tree, its branches stretching out like open arms, welcoming them into a space of healing and renewal. We've all been affected by the feud between the Bakers and the Smiths, Mr. Howard began, his voice carrying a sense of warmth and authority. But today, we have a chance to write our story. Let us reflect on how we can move forward with forgiveness and understanding. One by one, villagers stood up to share their thoughts and feelings. Some spoke of past grievances and the pain they had carried for years. Others expressed their hopes for a future where their children could grow up without the burden of old conflicts. It's time for us to heal as a community, declared Mrs. Johnson, an elder in the village known for her wisdom. Let us not pass down the weight of our grudges to the next generation. Instead, let us teach them the power of forgiveness and reconciliation. The gathering continued late into the evening, with villagers engaging in heartfelt conversations and making commitments to support each other on the journey towards healing. By the end of the night, there was a palpable sense of unity and determination among them. Tom and Emily's legacy. Tom and Emily, inspired by the positive changes in their village, continued to foster their newfound friendship. They worked together on community projects, volunteered at Mr. Harold's garden, and even organized a joint baking workshop for children from both families. Their friendship became a symbol of hope and possibility for the rest of the village. People looked to Tom and Emily as examples of what could be achieved through empathy, courage, and a willingness to let go of the past. One sunny afternoon, Tom and Emily sat together under the oak tree, reflecting on their journey. The tree's branches swayed gently in the breeze, casting dappled shadows on the ground below. Who would have thought we'd come this far? Emily mused, her eyes shining with pride. Tom nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. We've shown our families and our village that forgiveness is possible. As they sat in companionable silence, a group of children from both families approached them, their faces lit up with excitement. Tom, Emily, look what we made together, exclaimed Sarah, holding up a handmade banner that read peace and unity. Tom and Emily exchanged a meaningful glance. They knew that their journey towards forgiveness had only just begun, but they were confident that their village was on the path to a brighter, more harmonious future. A new beginning. In the years that followed, the village of Greenfield continued to thrive as a close-knit community. The lessons of forgiveness and reconciliation learned from Tom, Emily, and the children spread far and wide, inspiring neighboring villages and communities to embark on their own journeys of healing. Mr. Harold's garden flourished, becoming a symbol of peace and unity for all who visited. The oak tree, under which so many transformative moments had taken place, stood tall and proud, its roots deepening in the rich soil of understanding and compassion. Tom eventually took over the family bakery with Emily by his side, their partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. They continue to mentor the younger generations, teaching them the importance of empathy, forgiveness, and building bridges of friendship. As for Mr. Harold, he smiled as he watched the children of Greenfield play under the oak tree, their laughter echoing through the village square. He knew that the seeds of forgiveness he had planted had taken root, blossoming into a future where love and kindness prevailed. And so, the story of Tom, Emily, and the village of Greenfield became a timeless tale of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of forgiveness. It was a story that reminded people everywhere that no feud is too deep to be healed and no heart too hardened to love again. Celebrating unity, the village of Greenfield continued to thrive with renewed harmony and unity. Tom, Emily, and the entire community embraced their journey of forgiveness and reconciliation with open hearts. As the seasons passed, their efforts bore fruit in remarkable ways. The annual Harvest Festival arrived with greater anticipation and joy than ever before. Villagers from all walks of life gathered in the village square, adorned with colorful banners and decorations celebrating peace and unity. The aroma of freshly baked bread and pies filled the air, a testament to the shared efforts of the bakers and smiths in the community kitchen. Tom and Emily stood side by side, welcoming guests and sharing stories of their journey towards understanding. Children from both families played together, their laughter echoing through the square like a melody of hope and renewal. This festival is a testament to what we can achieve when we come together, Emily remarked, her eyes sparkling with pride. It's not just about celebrating the harvest. It's about celebrating our newfound unity. Tom nodded in agreement, his smile reflecting the deep sense of fulfillment he felt. We've come a long way, Emily. I'm grateful for every step of this journey. Throughout the festival, villagers participated in various activities that promoted community bonding and mutual respect. There were storytelling sessions where elders shared wisdom passed down through generations. Artisans showcased their crafts, symbolizing the diversity and creativity within the village. At sunset, everyone gathered around the oak tree for a special ceremony of gratitude and reflection. Mr. Harold, standing before the assembled villagers, spoke with heartfelt sincerity. Today, we celebrate not just the bounty of our harvest, but the bounty of our hearts, Mr. Harold began, his voice resonating with warmth. We've learned that forgiveness is not just a one-time act, but a continuous journey of understanding and empathy. He paused, allowing his words to sink in among the villagers. Faces young and old looked on with reverence, understanding the significance of their shared experience. Let us continue to nurture the seeds of peace and unity that we have planted together, Mr. Harold continued. May the spirit of forgiveness guide us in times of challenge and inspire us to build a future where love and compassion prevail. As the ceremony concluded, lanterns were lit and released into the night sky, symbolizing hopes for a bright and harmonious future. The villagers embraced each other warmly, their hearts filled with gratitude and renewed purpose. Passing the torch, years passed, and the legacy of forgiveness and reconciliation continued to shape the village of Greenfield. Tom and Emily, now respected leaders in the community, mentored younger generations on the importance of empathy and understanding. New families moved into Greenfield, drawn by its reputation as a place of peace and unity. They were welcomed with open arms, their stories intertwined with those who had lived in the village for generations. Sarah, who had played a pivotal role in mediating conflicts among the children, grew up to become a diplomat renowned for her ability to foster dialogue and resolve disputes. She credited her upbringing in Greenfield for teaching her the value of listening and seeking common ground. Mr. Harold, in his twilight years, continued to tend to his beloved garden and impart wisdom to anyone who sought his counsel. His garden had expanded over the years, now featuring diverse flora and serving as a sanctuary for reflection and introspection. One sunny afternoon, Tom and Emily visited Mr. Harold in his garden, their footsteps echoing softly on the winding paths. They found him sitting under the oak tree, a gentle smile gracing his weathered face. "Mr. Harold," Tom began, his voice filled with reverence, "we wanted to thank you for everything. You taught us more than just lessons. You showed us the way to a better future." Emily nodded in agreement, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "Without your guidance, we wouldn't be where we are today. Greenfield wouldn't be the peaceful place it has become." Mr. Harold chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with fondness. "You give me too much credit, Tom, Emily. The seeds of forgiveness were always within you. I merely helped you find the courage to let them grow." They sat together in companionable silence, the rustling leaves of the oak tree providing a soothing backdrop to their conversation. They reflected on the journey that had brought them together, the challenges they had overcome, and the bonds of friendship and understanding that had been forged along the way. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden, Tom and Emily stood up to leave. They knew that their work was far from over, but they also knew that Greenfield was in good hands, a lasting legacy. In the years that followed, Greenfield continued to thrive as a beacon of hope and unity. The story of Tom, Emily, and the village's journey towards forgiveness became a timeless tale passed down through generations. Visitors from neighboring villages and towns came to Greenfield, drawn by its reputation as a place where old wounds had been healed and new beginnings had flourished. They walked through Mr. Harold's garden, sat under the shade of the oak tree, and felt a sense of peace and tranquility wash over them. Tom and Emily's partnership in the bakery continued to flourish, their business serving as a hub of community activity and celebration. They often shared their story with visitors, reminding them of the transformative power of forgiveness and the importance of building bridges of understanding. And so, the village of Greenfield stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring legacy of forgiveness. It was a place where differences were celebrated, conflicts were resolved with compassion, and hearts were open to the possibility of a brighter future. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen. Your support means the world to me. Creating content is a labor of love, and knowing that it resonates with you makes it all worthwhile. Every view, every listen, every moment you spend engaging with my work is deeply appreciated.